The year was 2450. Across the galaxy, countless civilizations thrived on hundreds of star systems. Some species were tall and crystalline, some floated effortlessly in zero gravity, and some had wings that glimmered like starlight. Yet among all these advanced races, there was one species that everyone underestimated: humans. Humans were known for their kindness, creativity, and determination. They built great cities on barren planets, cultivated lush forests where none had existed, and invented technologies that healed the sick and nourished entire populations. They were traders, diplomats, and explorers, but never warriors. That reputation had followed them for centuries, and most aliens assumed that humans would never fight. On the border world of Karen 4, a small human settlement clung to the edge of a harsh, rocky terrain. Its sky glowed a soft lavender at dawn, and winds carried a faint metallic tang from the nearby mountains. The humans had built domed habitats and greenhouses that shimmered like glass bubbles. To anyone observing from space, it was a quiet and peaceful place. Captain Leora Venn of the Zathari Empire adjusted her uniform as she looked out over the colony from her patrol ship. She had served in the Zathari fleet for decades and had seen countless planets and civilizations, but Karen 4 with its human settlers was a curiosity. "They really are soft, aren't they?" one of her lieutenants whispered, glancing at the humans below. Leora frowned. "Soft, perhaps, but don't mistake kindness for weakness. Still, humans have never fought. Not seriously. I doubt they could." Her ship descended slowly, scanning the settlement. She saw humans walking in clusters, carrying tools and supplies, tending gardens or guiding children through the dome's corridors. Their movements were purposeful but never hurried. There was no sense of urgency, no sense of danger. Leora shook her head. If a real threat arrived, these humans would crumble. That night, while most of the colony slept, Leora patrolled the perimeter with her team. The stars stretched across the sky like ribbons of silver and gold, and the two moons of Karen 4 hung quietly above the mountains. Her sensors picked up nothing unusual at first, but then a faint signal, almost imperceptible, flickered on the monitor. "What is that?" her lieutenant asked. Leora's eyes narrowed. "Unknown energy signatures. They aren't from the colony, and they don't match any registered spacecraft." The team exchanged uneasy glances. Leora's instincts told her something was coming, a force the humans could not handle. "Prepare to investigate," she ordered. "We'll go out quietly. We don't want to alarm them." As the patrol ship hovered above the settlement, Leora watched humans moving about beneath them. Children played near the domes, parents walked side by side, and some settlers tended the hydroponic gardens. The humans seemed so ordinary, so fragile. She couldn't imagine them as fighters. Yet deep inside, a small spark of curiosity stirred. There was something about the way the humans worked together, the way they moved as a unit, that suggested discipline, even if it was quiet and subtle. The patrol team landed near a cluster of settlement domes. Leora stepped out first, her boots crunching on the metallic soil. The night air was cold, carrying a faint hum from the energy generators powering the domes. She moved toward a small group of settlers, who were clustered around a low structure that glowed faintly in the darkness. One human stood apart from the others, a tall man with broad shoulders and calm, focused eyes. He was giving instructions, gesturing toward devices and tools as the other settlers followed his directions without hesitation. Leora tilted her head. There was something unusual about him, not in appearance but in presence. Even in the quiet of the night, he seemed to radiate authority. "Who is he?" she whispered to her lieutenant. The lieutenant shook his head. "Just an engineer, I think. Name's Elias. Elias Ward." Leora frowned. "Engineer?" In her experience, engineers were problem solvers, not leaders. But she couldn't ignore the calm confidence that emanated from him. Something about the way he moved, something about the way others listened to him, was different. Suddenly, the energy sensors on their ship blinked rapidly. Leora's eyes went wide. "Get back to the ship, now!" The unknown signals were growing stronger, spreading across the settlement like a pulse. Leora realized that this was no ordinary scan. Something or someone was approaching, and it was not friendly. The settlers had noticed nothing. They continued their quiet work, unaware of the danger creeping closer. Leora felt a pang of frustration. Humans were soft, yes, but their ignorance of danger could be fatal. She approached Elias. "Sir," she said, keeping her voice calm but firm. "There's a threat approaching. You need to evacuate your people." Elias looked at her, eyes steady. "Threat? What kind?" "Unknown. Advanced, possibly armed." Elias nodded slowly. "Then we prepare. Evacuation is wise, but we do not panic. People need clear instructions. Lead them calmly. Panic only makes mistakes," Leora blinked. His tone was quiet, but it carried a firmness she had never heard from any human before. It was not fearless bravado. It was certainty, a steady current that pulled others along without force. As the patrol team returned to their ship, Leora watched Elias organize the settlers. He assigned tasks, activated backup power generators, and even converted mining drones into mobile protective units. Each instruction was precise, each action deliberate. Leora's doubt grew. Perhaps humans were not as defenseless as she had believed. Minutes passed and the signals intensified. A fleet of sleek black ships appeared on the horizon, descending toward the colony. They were fast, silent, and efficient. Leora's heart sank. The humans would never survive a conventional attack, except maybe. She watched Elias. He moved through the settlement with a quiet determination, checking on families, guiding people through safety protocols, and preparing devices to defend the colony. His confidence was contagious. Even the children seemed calmer when they saw him. Leora realized something extraordinary. Humans were not warriors by design, but they had a different kind of strength. It was not about weapons or fighting, it was about courage, resourcefulness, and the will to protect life. The alien ships landed on the outskirts of the colony, their engines humming like a giant restless beast. Leora's team readied their scanners and defensive gear, but she kept her eyes on Elias. He was still moving among the settlers, calm and precise, as if he had faced far worse than this in the past. Leora whispered to herself, "Perhaps I misjudged them. Perhaps humans have fighters after all." As the night deepened, the colony braced for the unknown. Yet amidst the rising tension, one man moved with unwavering focus. One human who seemed ordinary to the eyes, but extraordinary to anyone who truly watched. And Captain Leora Venn knew at that moment that the coming dawn would change everything she thought she knew about humanity. The humans were not fragile dreamers. They were survivors. And in the quiet, measured confidence of Elias Ward, she saw the first spark of a fighter. Little did she know, this was only the beginning. The night would bring challenges that would test the limits of human courage, strategy, and spirit. And when the first wave of danger arrived, it would be the quiet humans who stood tall where others might have faltered. Leora clenched her fists, feeling a mixture of anticipation and awe. Perhaps after tonight, the galaxy would have to reconsider its assumptions about the people from Earth. Perhaps humans, in their quiet, unassuming way, were not only builders of peace but also guardians of life, capable of feats no one had expected. The stars above Karen 4 twinkled as if in silent agreement. A storm was coming, but so was a new legend, and at the heart of it all, standing before the dawn of uncertainty, was Elias Ward, the human who would prove that courage could take many forms and that strength did not always roar, but sometimes whispered, guided, and inspired. The first light of Karen 4's twin suns had barely touched the domes when the quiet of the human settlement was shattered. On the horizon, sleek black ships moved with precision, slicing through the lavender sky. Unlike any vessels Leora had seen before, these craft did not broadcast identification signals or greetings. They simply appeared, dark shadows against the dawn, bringing an unmistakable tension. Captain Leora Venn gripped the rail of her patrol ship and stared at the approaching fleet. Her scanners blared with activity, detecting strange energy readings that pulsed rhythmically, like the heartbeat of a living machine. "They're not responding to hails," said Lieutenant Karras, her eyes wide with concern. "They're ignoring us entirely." Leora shook her head. "That means one thing, they're here for the colony. Stand ready." But first, she looked down at the settlement below, where humans were moving as if nothing had changed. "We need to see how they handle this." The humans went about their morning routines, but one figure stood apart from the rest, Elias Ward. He moved calmly among the settlers, giving instructions, checking systems, and adjusting energy conduits. Children followed him, mimicking his gestures, while adults listened without hesitation. There was a rhythm to his commands, a quiet authority that demanded trust. Leora studied him carefully. She had always believed humans were fragile, peaceful, untrained in combat. But Elias, he moved differently. Not like a soldier, but like someone who had faced danger before. Someone who knew how to respond when all seemed lost. "Captain," Lieutenant Karras said, pointing to a cluster of domes near the northern ridge. "The ships are deploying. Something. I can't identify the devices, but they're moving toward the settlement fast." Leora's stomach tightened. "We need to act, and we need to see what these humans do." From the horizon, the unknown crafts released small pods that glided down toward the colony. Each pod emitted a faint blue glow, scanning the environment as it descended. Settlers froze, staring at the pods in confusion and fear. The quiet of Cairn 4 was breaking. Elias Ward, however, remained calm. His voice carried over the settlement, steady and measured. "Everyone, stay close to your homes. Follow my instructions exactly. There's no need to panic." He pointed to a line of mining drones stationed at the edges of the colony. "Activate the drones. Direct them to intercept the pods. Use the energy fields at minimum power, just enough to block sensors. Avoid damaging the equipment. Remember, our goal is protection, not destruction." Leora raised an eyebrow. The humans were responding, not with weapons, but with clever strategies. The pods approached, but the drones intercepted them, emitting pulses of harmless energy that confused the sensors and sent the pods spinning harmlessly into the air. Karras whispered, "Captain, they're working. They're actually stopping the pods." Leora's eyes widened. "Incredible. This human, he's not just clever. He's thinking ahead, anticipating every move." The unknown ships hovered closer. From the hull of one, a large scanning beam swept across the settlement. Humans scattered, ducking behind domes, while Elias directed energy from the settlement's power grid to create temporary barriers. Leora followed him, amazed. Every action was precise, deliberate. He moved through the chaos like a conductor guiding an orchestra, and somehow every settler knew their part. "Captain," Lieutenant Karras said softly, "if humans can coordinate this well under pressure, maybe we've underestimated them." Leora nodded, but she kept her voice firm. "Do not forget, they are still vulnerable. One mistake and the colony could be devastated." As the black ships deployed more pods, the humans adapted. They began using environmental features, the rocky terrain, energy fields, even reflections from solar panels, to redirect the pod's sensors. It was not violence. It was cleverness, patience, and problem-solving under pressure. Then something unexpected happened. One pod, larger than the rest, descended directly toward the main settlement dome. Leora tensed. The humans had never faced anything like this before. Elias moved quickly. He directed a series of small drones to the base of the dome. They worked together, forming a temporary energy shield that absorbed the pod's scan without harming it. Settlers looked on in awe. Even Leora felt a shiver of respect. "Captain," Lieutenant Karras murmured, "he didn't just react, he anticipated it. He planned for something we didn't even know could happen." Leora nodded slowly. "Yes, he's more than a simple engineer." Once the pod was neutralized, Elias quickly assessed the rest of the situation. He instructed settlers to form groups, creating chains of communication and defense. Families were guided to safety zones and critical equipment was protected. His mind worked faster than anyone else's, calculating variables, predicting outcomes, and adjusting strategies in real time. Leora watched in amazement. "He's organizing a defense without a single weapon," she said quietly. "If this were a real battle, most species would have panicked by now. These humans, they're different." A sudden alert on the patrol ship's console drew her attention. "Captain, the fleet is moving in formation," said Karras. "They're coordinating their approach. This could be serious." Leora took a deep breath. She knew that conventional defenses would be needed if the ships attacked directly. But Elias's leadership had already changed the game. He was not fighting with firepower. He was fighting with strategy, intelligence, and the courage of the settlers. Leora made her decision. "We stay and observe. Let's see what he can do next." The black ships released a beam that scanned the colony's perimeter. Normally, such a beam would have disabled entire settlements. But Elias acted swiftly. He rerouted power through a network of shield generators, creating a temporary distortion field that reflected the scanning energy harmlessly away. Leora's mouth fell open. He just protected the whole colony with nothing more than energy redirection. The settlers began to gain confidence, moving with purpose and following Elias's instructions without fear. Even the youngest children helped in small ways, carrying tools, guiding others, and reporting changes in the environment. The humans were working together as one unit, and the alien observers could not understand it. One of Leora's lieutenants muttered, "Captain, this is remarkable. These humans, they're not what we thought." "No," Leora agreed. "They are something else entirely." As the day progressed, the unknown fleet adjusted their tactics. They sent a larger wave of drones and devices testing the humans' defenses. But each time Elias Ward anticipated the moves. He guided the settlers to redirect power, use terrain features, and coordinate drones in ways that confused the intruders. Leora realized something important. Humans did not need weapons to be fighters. Their strength lay in their creativity, their problem-solving, and their unwavering determination to protect life. Hours passed, and the fleet seemed to pause, as if re-evaluating the situation. Leora's sensors showed no signs of retreat. They were studying the humans, trying to understand how a species that was supposed to be peaceful could defend themselves so effectively. Elias, meanwhile, remained calm. He checked on the settlers' reassured families and adjusted energy flows. There was no panic in his voice, no rash actions. He acted with confidence and care, showing every observer that courage was not about aggression. It was about protecting what mattered most. Finally, one of the larger ships emitted a signal, scanning Elias directly. Leora watched closely, recognizing a faint emblem on his wrist, an old insignia she had only seen in records of ancient human military programs. "Captain," Karis whispered, pointing to the symbol. "Is that—" Leora's mind raced. "It can't be. Project Aegis. That was decommissioned centuries ago. Only a handful of humans ever trained under it. If that's him, then this changes everything." She realized then that Elias was not merely a civilian engineer. He was one of the last surviving members of a secret human defense program. But he had chosen a life of peace after the program ended. Now, facing this unknown threat, the fighter within him had returned. The black ships hovered, scanning, adjusting, and testing. But the humans, guided by Elias, were ready, not with guns or explosives, but with intelligence, courage, and coordination. Leora watched spellbound as the humans adapted to each new challenge, proving that their strength lay not in brute force, but in will, mind, and heart. For the first time, Leora Venn doubted everything she had believed about humans. They were not weak. They were not helpless. And the man at the center of it all, Elias Ward, was about to show the galaxy that humans could stand tall against the unknown, even when no one expected it. The sky above Karen 4 glowed with strange energy, the black ships testing their limits. But the settlement remained intact, its people guided by the quiet human who refused to give in to fear. Leora clenched her fists, a mixture of awe and disbelief in her chest. She whispered, "I was wrong. Humans are not defenseless. They are fighters in their own way. And this one, he may be the greatest of them all." And in the quiet of Karen 4, under the twin suns that barely kissed the horizon, the first day of the unknown threat ended, not with destruction, but with hope. Because humans had stood together, led by a quiet man whose courage and intelligence had turned fear into strength. Tomorrow, Leora knew, would bring new challenges. But she also knew that Elias Ward had already proven something extraordinary, that Huma. The day after the first encounter, Karen 4 was alive with movement. The settlers had worked through the night, repairing energy conduits, checking drone systems, and fortifying key points of the colony. Elias Ward moved among them like a steady hand on a trembling ship. He spoke quietly, but every word carried authority. "Check the energy grids," he instructed a group of settlers. "Make sure the shield generators are balanced. If one fails, the others will compensate. Remember, every small adjustment matters." The settlers obeyed without hesitation. Each person knew their role because Elias had made it clear. His calm confidence had inspired them, not with fear, but with trust. Captain Leora Venn watched from the edge of the colony, her mind racing. The humans had survived the first wave of the unknown fleet without firing a weapon, not because the fleet had held back, but because humans, under Elias's leadership, had been clever enough to counter the threat in ways that relied on intelligence and coordination rather than force. "Captain," Lieutenant Karis said softly, "these humans, They're remarkable. I've never seen anything like it. He's not just a leader, he's a strategist, Leora nodded slowly. Yes, and there's more to him than we know. Look at that insignia on his wrist. Project Aegis, that program was shut down centuries ago. Only a handful of humans were ever trained in it, and he's one of them. As if sensing her gaze, Elias turned slightly, his calm eyes scanning the perimeter. There was no arrogance in his posture, no desire to show off skill. Yet every movement revealed a practiced precision, a quiet mastery of tactics honed over years of disciplined training. The next wave of pods approached from the horizon. They were larger this time, moving in a coordinated pattern designed to test the humans' defenses. The settlers hesitated for a moment, but Elias's voice cut through the tension. Everyone, stay focused. These pods are testing us. Treat each movement as a puzzle. We adapt, we adjust, we protect. Remember, our goal is survival, not destruction. The drones moved as if alive, guided by human hands and careful calculations. Energy fields shifted, reflecting the sensors of the pods, redirecting them harmlessly into the rocky terrain. Settlers worked in unison, placing temporary barriers and rerouting power. Each action was small, but together they formed an unbreakable chain of defense. Leora could hardly believe her eyes. I've seen soldiers train for years and still fail under pressure, she whispered. These humans, they're performing as one mind, one body. Karis shook her head. It's the leader. He's the key. Without him, they'd panic. But with him, they're unstoppable in their own way. Elias moved to the center of the colony, where the main dome and energy core were located. The largest pod of the incoming wave hovered just above it, scanning for weaknesses. Without hesitation, he directed drones to form a protective shield around the dome, while simultaneously adjusting the energy flow to create a pulse that confused the pod's sensors. The pod tilted, spiraled, and then descended harmlessly onto the rocks outside the colony, deactivated without any damage. Settlers cheered softly, not in triumph, but in relief. One of Leora's lieutenants whispered, "Captain." He didn't just react. He anticipated it. He planned for something we didn't even know could happen. Leora's mind raced. She had studied countless civilizations, and she knew that most would rely on weapons to solve such a problem. Yet here, a human without a single conventional weapon had neutralized a dangerous threat through intellect, foresight, and calm leadership. "Captain," Karis said after a pause, "I think he's more than just an engineer. He's a trained fighter, a strategist. Project Aegis was designed to prepare humans for impossible odds. If he's one of them, then he's one of the most capable humans alive." Leora nodded. "That explains everything. That calm, quiet confidence, that authority over others. He's hidden it well all these years, but now he has no choice. His abilities are needed, and he's rising to the challenge." The unknown fleet, realizing that direct attacks on the colony were ineffective, changed strategy. Smaller ships began to circle, attempting to isolate individual drones and settlers. The pace quickened, and the settlers began to tire. Elias noticed their hesitation immediately. He moved among them, offering reassurance, guiding their actions, and making tiny adjustments to their formation. Every decision was calculated, precise, and effective. "Don't fear the numbers," he said. "Numbers alone do not determine the outcome. Each of you matters. Every decision you make counts. Focus on what you can control, and we will succeed." His words were not commands, they were inspiration, and it worked. The settlers regained confidence, moving with renewed energy and determination. Meanwhile, Leora observed Elias closely. She realized that this human was not only a hidden warrior but also a master of teaching. He made the inexperienced capable, the fearful courageous, and the ordinary extraordinary. She felt a mixture of awe and disbelief. Humans, she had assumed, were gentle dreamers, yet here was proof that when necessary they could rise to any challenge. Hours passed, and the unknown fleet's attempts continued. Pods approached from different angles, trying to test weaknesses, but every move Elias anticipated. He guided the settlers to redirect energy, reposition drones, and reinforce shields. Nothing was wasted, nothing was rushed. Then came the moment that changed everything. A pod, larger than any before, hovered above the main energy core. It pulsed with strange energy, scanning for vulnerabilities. Settlers froze, unsure how to respond. Elias moved quickly. "Activate the auxiliary shields. Direct all remaining drone units to the core. Channel energy through the grid in a feedback loop. Keep calm, stay precise, and do exactly as I say." The settlers obeyed, and in moments the pod was neutralized. It spiraled harmlessly into the ground, deactivated without harm. The humans had done the impossible, not with weapons but with planning, intelligence, and courage. Leora turned to Karis, her voice quiet. He didn't just protect the colony, he protected their spirit. That is what makes humans strong. Not strength alone, not speed alone, but the will to stand, to think, and to act when it matters most. Karis nodded. Captain, do you think he could lead an entire species if necessary? Leora's eyes followed Elias as he moved among the settlers, checking on families and recalibrating drones. Yes, she said finally. But he doesn't seek glory. That is what makes him truly remarkable. Humans may be underestimated, but when one stands, they can change everything. As the sun began to set on Charon 4, the unknown fleet retreated, perhaps reconsidering their assumptions about the human settlers. The day had ended, but the settlement remained standing, not because of weapons or superior firepower, but because of the leadership, strategy, and courage of one human, Elias Ward. The settlers began to settle into their homes, exhausted but inspired. Families thanked him quietly, children waved shyly, and adults nodded with deep respect. Elias did not boast, did not demand recognition. He simply returned to checking energy systems, ensuring that every part of the colony was secure. Leora watched him, understanding at last what she had glimpsed from the start. Humans were not soft, not fragile, not defenseless. They were fighters in their own way. And the quiet human before her, who had faced impossible odds without hesitation, was a living testament to that truth. The stars above Charon 4 twinkled in the darkening sky, reflecting the determination and ingenuity of humans below. Leora Venn, captain of the Zathari fleet, realized that the galaxy had misunderstood humanity for centuries. And now, under the leadership of Elias Ward, humans had begun to show what they were truly capable of. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The unknown fleet might return with greater numbers, testing the limits of the humans' ingenuity and courage. But one thing was certain: the quiet engineer who had stood at the center of it all was not merely a survivor. He was a hidden warrior, and Leora knew, with growing certainty, that the galaxy would have to recognize the truth. Humans were more than builders, more than dreamers. When needed, they could stand, adapt, and protect life in ways no one had ever imagined. And at the heart of that strength stood Elias Ward, the human who had awakened the hidden fighter in everyone around him. The night had been quiet after the last wave of the mysterious fleet. Settlers repaired broken drones, reinforced energy grids, and shared stories to calm frightened children. But Leora Venn knew that the respite was temporary. The unknown ships were still in orbit, and their retreat was only a pause. They would return, stronger and more calculated. Elias Ward walked among the settlers as the first light of dawn touched the purple-hued sky. The air was cool, and the twin suns of Charon 4 cast soft golden shadows across the domes. He moved deliberately, checking barriers and adjusting the positions of drones. Every movement was precise, every decision considered. "Captain," Lieutenant Karis whispered from the patrol ship. "The fleet is returning. Larger, faster, more coordinated. This is their final approach." Leora clenched her fists, her eyes following Elias as he guided settlers. She had watched him lead, plan, and inspire, but she had never witnessed him in a moment where everything truly depended on him. Now is that moment. Elias called the settlers together in the central plaza. The adults formed small groups, children gathered near their parents, and even the youngest seemed to sense the seriousness of the moment. His calm voice carried across the plaza. "Today is not a day for fear," he began. "We have faced challenges before, and we have overcome them together. These ships believe we are weak. They are wrong. We will protect our homes, our families, and each other, not through anger, but through courage, planning, and unity." Settlers nodded, taking deep breaths, steadying themselves. Elias's words were not a speech, they were a strategy. Every sentence prepared them for action, every pause built confidence. "Follow my instructions exactly. Everyone has a role, every role matters. Children, you stay with your families but help by observing and reporting. Adults, assist with energy grids, drones, and barriers. And remember, stay calm, stay alert, and trust in each other." Leora felt a shiver run down her spine. She had seen soldiers from countless species under fire, but none could inspire this level of calm determination. Humans, she realized, had a strength that did not rely on weapons or aggression. It came from the heart. The Black Fleet returned over the horizon, their ships moving in tight formation. The lead vessel was massive, far larger than any Elias had encountered before. Its hull glimmered with strange energy, and multiple drones moved around it, scanning the settlement for weaknesses. Elias moved quickly. He activated energy pulses along the perimeter, recalibrated shields to cover weak points, and directed drones into strategic positions. He didn't fight with weapons, he fought with strategy, knowledge, and foresight. Every action he took protected life and minimized risk. Leora and her team watched from the patrol ship. They could see Elias's calm confidence spreading to every human in the colony. Even those who had once trembled at the sight of unknown ships now moved with purpose. "Captain," Karis said quietly, "he's doing what no one expected. He's not just surviving, he's taking control of the situation." "Yes," Leora agreed. "This is not just defense. This is leadership. This is the human spirit at its finest." The lead ship released a massive energy wave, scanning for vulnerabilities in the settlement. The settlers froze, unsure how to respond. Elias acted immediately. He directed drones to intercept the wave and rerouted power through secondary energy conduits. The wave's energy dispersed harmlessly, leaving the settlement intact. "Excellent work," Elias said calmly. "Stay focused. The next move is theirs. We will adapt again, as we always do." The fleet then began to isolate key points of the colony. Pods descended near the domes housing energy cores and essential equipment. The settlers followed Elias's instructions without hesitation, moving drones, rerouting power, and activating protective fields. Each action was precise, each adjustment calculated. Leora watched, amazed. Humans had faced danger before, but never like this. They were resourceful, determined, and resilient. And Elias, he was the cornerstone of their defense. His calm mind, quick thinking, and ability to inspire others made him a leader in every sense. Hours passed, and the fleet's attacks grew more aggressive. They tested every defense, scanned every structure, and attempted to confuse the humans with unpredictable maneuvers. But each time Elias anticipated their moves. He guided the settlers to counter, adapt, and protect, using intelligence instead of force. "Captain," Karis said softly, "if anyone could lead humans to survive this, it's him. I've never seen such calm under pressure." Leora nodded. "Yes, and notice this, he doesn't need weapons to succeed. He relies on ingenuity, courage, and coordination. That is what makes him different from every other fighter I have encountered." As the sun rose fully, the final challenge arrived. The lead ship descended, aiming directly at the central dome, the heart of the settlement's energy network. Drones and barriers braced for the impact, but Elias had anticipated this move. "Activate the auxiliary shields," he instructed. "Channel all remaining power into the central grid. Focus on disruption, not destruction. Keep calm, everyone. This is the moment we've been preparing for." The lead ship's energy beam hit the shields, but instead of destroying them, the pulse was redirected through the energy grid. It created a feedback loop that temporarily blinded the fleet's sensors, giving the humans a clear advantage. Drones moved in precise patterns, confusing the enemy's targeting systems further. Elias directed Leora and her team to assist with the feedback loop, coordinating humans and Zathari soldiers in perfect harmony. The combined effort created a protective barrier around the colony, neutralizing the fleet's attack without harming life. "Remarkable," Leora whispered. "He has done the impossible again." He didn't fight with violence, he fought with intelligence and heart. The fleet paused, scanning, adjusting, and recalculating. It was clear that the humans were not what they expected. Elias had turned an impossible situation into a coordinated defense that protected every settler, every drone, every structure. Finally, the lead ship withdrew, signaling retreat. Smaller ships followed. The humans had stood their ground. They had survived not because of brute force, but because of courage, strategy, and the guidance of one extraordinary human. The settlers erupted in quiet relief. Children laughed, families hugged, and adults smiled with pride. Elias moved among them, ensuring everyone was safe and checking the integrity of the colony. There was no boast, no celebration, only careful attention to the needs of the people. Leora stepped forward, approaching Elias. "I underestimated humans," she said softly. "And I underestimated you. You are extraordinary." Elias looked at her, calm as ever. "I only do what is necessary to protect life. That is all any of us can do. But you are more than that, Leora said. You are a leader, a strategist, and a fighter. Humans may prefer peace, but today you proved they can stand against the impossible. Elias smiled faintly. Strength is not only in fighting. It is in courage, intelligence, and unity. Today we all fought together, not with weapons but with our minds and hearts. Leora nodded, understanding at last. This was the essence of humanity, determined, resourceful, and willing to protect life at all costs. The settlers began rebuilding, repairing what had been tested, improving defenses, and sharing lessons learned. Elias guided them patiently, teaching and encouraging, ensuring that the colony would be stronger than before. As the sun fully rose over Cairn 4, Leora realized that this day would be remembered for generations, not for destruction or conquest, but for courage, ingenuity, and the human spirit. Tomorrow the fleet might return with new tactics. Challenges would come again. But Elias Ward had shown that humans could face the impossible, protect life, and inspire hope in others. And that was a power no weapon could match. Leora watched Elias from afar, filled with respect and awe. He had transformed a peaceful colony into a bastion of intelligence and courage. And in that transformation, the galaxy would come to see humans not as fragile dreamers, but as fighters who could rise to meet any challenge. The stars above Cairn 4 shimmered, reflecting the determination and resilience of humans below, and at the heart of it all stood Elias Ward, the quiet engineer, the hidden warrior, the human who had turned fear into strength, and the ordinary into extraordinary. The morning after the last wave of the unknown fleet, Cairn 4 glimmered under the soft light of its twin suns. The colony, though tested, stood strong. The settlers had worked through the night, repairing shields, recalibrating drones, and fortifying structures. And in the center of it all, Elias Ward moved quietly, checking every system, offering guidance, and ensuring that every person was safe. Captain Leora Venn observed from her patrol ship. She had witnessed something extraordinary over the past days. What had seemed like a fragile, peaceful human colony had endured what no one expected. Through intelligence, courage, and leadership rather than brute force, Captain Lieutenant Karras said softly, "I have seen civilizations face war, face loss, and fail. But these humans, they survived impossible odds with nothing more than their minds and hearts. Elias Ward, he's changed everything." Leora nodded, her eyes never leaving Elias. "Yes, and the galaxy will know it soon. Not because he sought glory, but because he reminded everyone what humans are capable of when they choose to stand." Elias moved among the settlers, assisting families, inspecting equipment, and offering quiet words of encouragement. He did not claim credit, he did not demand recognition. His satisfaction came from seeing people safe, confident, and ready for the challenges that lay ahead. A group of children approached him, holding small tools they had used to help rebuild the energy grids. One shyly asked, "Will the black ships come back?" Elias knelt, looking at the child with calm eyes. "Perhaps, but if they do, we will be ready. You have learned to work together, to think, and to help each other. That is stronger than any ship or weapon. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it." The children nodded, understanding more than their years suggested. In Elias's presence, even the youngest settlers felt empowered, capable, and brave. Later, Leora approached him as he calibrated a drone. "Elias Ward," she said, "you've done what many thought impossible. You've led this colony to survive, to thrive, and to face threats they had no chance of handling." Elias looked up, his expression calm. "I did not do it alone. Every person here played their part. I only guided them. True strength lies in people working together, not in one person alone." Leora smiled faintly. "Perhaps that is the true strength of humans. You do not rely on raw power or weapons. You rely on ingenuity, unity, and courage. And in doing so, you have inspired me and the rest of the galaxy to rethink what humanity can achieve." By midday, word of the human victory had begun to spread. Communications relayed the story to nearby Galactic Union outposts. Reports described a quiet colony that had survived impossible attacks through clever planning, coordination, and leadership. At the center of the story was Elias Ward, the human who had turned ordinary settlers into a disciplined, unbreakable unit. As reinforcements from the Galactic Union arrived, Leora prepared her report. She could already see the attention it would draw. The galaxy had assumed humans were gentle, peaceful, and unfit for defense. They had been wrong. Humans could fight, not with hatred or violence, but with heart, intelligence, and courage. When she finished her report, she looked toward the colony. Settlers were tending their gardens, repairing drones, and talking quietly among themselves. Children played near the domes, laughter echoing through the settlement. And Elias? He moved through it all like a quiet guardian, checking on families, offering small suggestions, and ensuring that every system was ready for the future. Leora realized that Elias had become more than a leader. He had become a symbol, a reminder that courage, intelligence, and the will to protect life were as powerful as any weapon in the galaxy. Later, a small group of Galactic Union officials visited the colony. They offered thanks, commendations, and suggestions for future protection. Elias listened patiently, providing guidance but never seeking recognition. His focus remained on the settlers, on their safety, and on ensuring the colony could continue to thrive. One official, curious and impressed, asked, "Why do you not accept a medal or a command position? You have done more than anyone could imagine." Elias smiled faintly. "I do not fight for medals or titles. I fight to protect life. The reward is seeing people safe, confident, and capable. That is enough." The officials exchanged looks, realizing that this was not just a human who had survived. This was a human who had transformed the idea of strength itself. Meanwhile, the settlers began sharing stories of the defense. Children told one another how drones moved under Elias's guidance, how energy shields bent to protect them, and how calm and confident their leader had been. Adults recounted how he had taught them to think clearly, act deliberately, and work together as one. In every story, a single truth emerged. Humans were stronger than the galaxy had believed. Not because they sought war, but because they stood for life, ingenuity, and courage. Even Leora felt a change within herself. She had come to Karen 4 expecting a fragile human colony. Instead, she had witnessed a people who could rise to any challenge when led with wisdom and courage. She had learned that strength did not always roar. It could whisper, guide, and inspire. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting warm gold across the domes, Elias walked to the edge of the settlement. He watched the mountains, the twin moons rising, and the quiet stars beginning to appear. He knew that challenges would come again. The unknown fleet might return, or other threats might emerge. But he also knew that humans were ready, not because they had weapons or military might, but because they had heart, determination, and the ability to work together. Leora approached him quietly. "Elias," she said softly, "the galaxy is beginning to understand. Humans will no longer be underestimated. You've shown them that courage, intelligence, and leadership are as strong as any weapon." Elias nodded, his calm gaze on the horizon. "I only did what was necessary to protect life, but yes, perhaps now the galaxy will see humans as more than peaceful dreamers. Perhaps they will see what we always knew, that when necessary we can stand tall and face the impossible." By nightfall, stories of Karen 4's defense had spread across nearby star systems. News transmissions described how a single human had inspired an entire colony to survive against a seemingly unstoppable force. Elias Ward's name became a symbol, a quiet but powerful reminder that humans, though preferring peace, could rise to meet any challenge. In the following weeks, Leora and the Galactic Union ensured that Karen 4 had sufficient protection. Advanced technology, drones, and shields were provided, but Elias remained focused on the people, teaching them to work together and solve problems rather than rely solely on new weapons. The settlers rebuilt and thrived. Children learned lessons of courage and cooperation. Adults strengthened systems prepared for future challenges, and shared stories of how Elias had led them when the impossible seemed inevitable. And across the galaxy, those who had doubted humans began to change their perspective. Reports from Karen 4 were discussed in councils, training academies, and fleets. Humans were no longer seen as gentle dreamers. They were recognized as beings capable of ingenuity, courage, and extraordinary leadership. In the quiet of the colony, Elias returned to his work as an engineer, adjusting energy grids, checking drones, and guiding settlers. He did not seek praise, for he knew the true measure of strength was not recognition, but the protection and empowerment of others. One evening, as he watched the twin suns set, Leora approached him once more. "The galaxy will remember this," she said. "Your courage, your leadership, your heart. Humans will never be underestimated again." Elias smiled faintly. "Let them remember. But my task is not to be remembered. It is to ensure life thrives and that people are prepared to face what comes next. That is all any of us can do." Leora nodded, understanding at last the quiet power of humans. They did not need to fight to prove themselves, they needed only to stand, to protect, and to inspire. And so Karen 4 remained a beacon of hope. Its story, and the story of Elias Ward, spread across the stars. Whenever humans were underestimated, whenever someone doubted their courage, the tale of the quiet fighter who led a colony to survive the impossible was told. Elias never sought fame or reward. He returned to his work quietly, teaching, guiding, and inspiring. But across the galaxy, his example became a legend. Not a legend of destruction or conquest, but a legend of heart, courage, and the extraordinary potential hidden within ordinary humans. And whenever someone questioned humanity's strength, they remembered the words of Captain Leora Venn. "They say humans have no warriors. They are wrong. Their strength is not in weapons, but in the will to stand when no one else will." In that quiet understanding, the galaxy learned a profound truth. Humans, though peaceful by choice, could rise to face the impossible, protect life, and inspire hope. And the quiet fighter, who had stood before the unknown threat, Elias Ward, would forever be remembered as the first to show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. The stars above Karen 4 shone brighter that night, reflecting courage, hope, and the quiet power of humanity.